The golden light of the late afternoon poured through the glass walls of the top floor, reflecting off the immaculate desk where Ethan Cole, a tycoon accustomed to winning, stared in silence at a thick envelope. The heavy stock paper, embossed with raised letters, bore a name that still stirred a familiar discomfort: Claire Hamilton. He tore the seal with a calculated motion, as if each fiber of the paper represented a piece of the past he'd never wanted to revisit. Inside, the invitation, written in elegant calligraphy, announced Claire's engagement to Victor Davenport, an influential investor and an old acquaintance of Ethan's. The date, the luxurious venue, the flawless details, everything reeked of ostentation and, above all, provocation. What infuriated him wasn't the invitation itself, but the subtext. She hadn't just moved on. She was determined to flaunt her new trophy right in front of him. Ethan let the invitation drop onto the mahogany desk, his jaw tightening as an old wound began to burn again. That's when Marcus, his friend and business partner, walked into the office. He picked up the card and let out a low, mocking whistle. "That's a low blow, man. You going?" Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Show up alone? Just so everyone can think I've been sulking in a corner? Not a chance." Marcus leaned against the desk, a teasing grin playing on his lips. "Then don't go alone. Bring someone. Someone who'll make everyone wonder what you've been up to, and leave Claire with that little burning doubt." Ethan folded his arms, considering it. Marcus was right, but it couldn't be just anyone. She couldn't just be beautiful. She had to be unforgettable. Someone who would shake their social circle to its core. The idea settled in his mind as he wrapped up the day. By the time he left the building, the cold night air bit at his skin, but his thoughts burned with determination. Crossing a busy square, something caught his eye, something that didn't belong to the city's usual rush. A young woman sitting on the ground with a small easel in front of her and a few canvases leaning against it. She painted calmly, untouched by the stream of passers-by. Her worn coat, frayed scarf, and loose hair spoke of hard days, but her gaze, it didn't ask for anything. It was direct, steady, almost defiant. Intrigued, Ethan approached with his hands in his pockets. "How much for one of these?" he asked, leaning slightly to study the bold stroke of color on the unfinished canvas. She lifted her eyes, scanning him from head to toe. There was something in her look, not admiration, not curiosity, but a cold, assessing read. "Depends. Do you want to buy art or buy my story?" The reply threw him off script. Keeping his voice even, he said, "I have a proposition. Come with me to an event, and I'll pay you enough to change your life." She let out a short, ironic laugh. "Change my life? Is that how you always talk when you want to feel like a hero?" Ethan arched a brow, unruffled. "This isn't charity. It's a job." The young woman crossed her arms, the corner of her mouth curling into a half-smile. "So tell me, do you want an escort or an actress to impress someone?" Her precision caught him off guard. "Maybe both." She tilted her head, studying him as if weighing the offer on some invisible scale. After a few seconds, she said, "I'll do it, but not for the money. I want to see how far a man like you is willing to go." Without another word, she began packing her things. Ethan had the unsettling feeling that he'd just stepped into a game whose rules he didn't yet know. Minutes later, they were in a sleek black sedan, gliding down the city's lit avenues. In the quiet, Ethan studied the stranger. "You're not even curious where we're going?" She turned her face toward him, a faint smile on her lips. "I'm guessing somewhere expensive. Don't worry, I'm not the type to get lost in the sparkle." Ethan watched her closely. She didn't look nervous or impressed. "Are you always this calm with strangers?" She shrugged. "Maybe I just know when the danger isn't where everyone thinks it is." The car stopped in front of a minimalist boutique, its windows displaying dresses worth more than some cars. Without hesitation, Ethan stepped inside and told the manager, I want a full transformation. Dress, shoes, hair, makeup. Make it unforgettable. The staff moved at once, leading her into a private fitting area. As she tried on pieces, she didn't gush or glow. She touched fabrics, tested the fit, like someone who already understood the silent language of luxury. When a stylist asked if she wanted to see the most exclusive options, she simply said, "Bring me your best." 2 hours later, she came down the boutique's private staircase in a deep blue gown that seemed made for her. Her hair, swept into a low chignon, bared the elegant line of her neck, and the makeup brought out the natural brightness in her eyes. Ethan was quiet for a moment, not because the change shocked him, but because something didn't fit the narrative. This wasn't the look of someone transformed for the first time. It was the look of someone reclaiming a role she'd worn before. "You're not surprised by the result?" he asked, arms crossed. She held his gaze, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "This isn't the first time I've worn something like this." Ethan didn't reply. He simply opened the car door, and as she slid into the seat with the ease of someone who'd always belonged there, he realized the night was about to give him far more answers than he'd asked for. The black sedan moved down the city's main avenue, the night outside glowing with neon and marquee lights. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Inside, the silence between Ethan and Lena was as sharp as a blade. He'd expected her to be restless, maybe intimidated, after the transformation. Instead, Lena watched the lights pass by with the calm of someone who had all the time in the world. "You're awfully quiet," he said, eyes on the road. "I'm just enjoying the silence," she replied. Not sarcastic, just with a faint smile that kept him guessing. Ethan lifted an eyebrow. "Most people in your position would be impressed." Lena gave a soft laugh. "Maybe I'm not like most people." The sedan slowed in front of a monumental building, its marble steps leading to a ballroom where spotlights and cameras waited for the city's elite. Couples stepped out of limousines flaunting jewels and rehearsed smiles, while photographers shouted names and fired off flashes. Ethan got out first, adjusted his suit, and extended his hand to Lena. She accepted without hesitation, and the moment her heel touched the pavement, something shifted. It was as if an invisible curtain had been drawn open, and all eyes turned to her. A low murmur rippled through the line of guests. No one seemed to know who she was, but everyone wanted to find out. "Remember, follow my lead." Polished, cordial, but no unnecessary attention, Ethan murmured as they climbed the steps. Lena kept her gaze forward. "Funny. I thought you brought me here to be noticed, not to disappear." He didn't answer, simply pushed open the glass doors. The ballroom, bathed in the warm glow of crystal chandeliers, was filled with the city's high society. Silver trays floated through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while hushed conversations intertwined with the soft piano music drifting through the air. Then Ethan saw her, Claire, in a floor-length white gown with delicate embroidery, her hair styled to perfection, her arm linked with Victor Davenport, the man who had taken his place. She was speaking to a small group, but her eyes found him almost immediately. For a moment, her smile faltered, and it faltered even more when she noticed the woman beside him. Claire blinked rapidly, as if needing a second to compose herself, then stepped forward to greet them. "Ethan, what a surprise to see you here." Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were ice. "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss this," he replied, his tone polite but distant. Before he could introduce her, Lena stepped forward with effortless grace, extending her hand. "Lena, a pleasure to finally meet you." The "finally" made Claire's brows lift in surprise. "You seem familiar," she said, trying to mask her discomfort. Lena tilted her head slightly, a faint, enigmatic smile on her lips. "Do I?" Their handshake lingered a second too long, and in that brief moment Ethan realized there was more here than he understood. A silent recognition passed between them, something that had nothing to do with him. Sensing the tension, Victor stepped in. "Shall we toast? It's a special night." But as he lifted his glass, Ethan's mind wasn't on the toast. His gaze flicked between Claire and Lena, trying to decode a game that seemed to have started without his knowledge. Deep down, he knew this night wasn't going to be just about showing his ex-fiancée that he'd moved on. Lena had brought something unpredictable into the room, something that left him torn between fascination and caution. The ballroom buzzed with elegant chatter, but Ethan noticed that wherever they went, eyes inevitably landed on Lena. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the way she carried herself, the way she moved through the space as though she already knew it intimately. A waiter offered her champagne. She accepted with a smile that seemed crafted to charm but never fully given away. Watching closely, Ethan realized she wasn't putting on a performance for him. This was simply her. Across the room, Claire tracked Lena's every step with a sharp, calculating gaze. She seemed to be weighing whether to approach or keep her distance. Her decision came when she caught Lena alone near the balcony, soft light filtering through the drapes. "Can we talk, alone?" Claire asked, her voice low but laced with tension. Lena turned her head slowly, as if she'd been expecting this. "Of course." The two walked to a discreet corner, and Ethan, just a few feet away, kept his champagne in hand, eyes fixed on them as if he could read their lips. The conversation began with subtle jabs. Claire probed, trying to gauge how much Lena knew. "Did you really just appear out of nowhere?" Lena lifted one corner of her mouth. "Funny. I thought you recognized me." Claire's expression hardened. "I know exactly who you are, and I know why you're here." Lena leaned in, her voice low but firm. "Then you know I could end this night in the blink of an eye." The air between them grew taut, and before Claire could respond, an older, distinguished man appeared beside them. "Helena Moreau?" he said, with both surprise and a touch of reverence. The name landed like a weight. Claire paled. Ethan, who had already started moving toward them, froze, catching every detail of their reactions. Lena or Helena smiled calmly. "It's been a long time, Mr. Whitford." Visibly moved, the man praised her appearance and said he was glad to see her back in the circle. Ethan felt the words hit. Back in the circle? That meant she had once been part of this world and had vanished. Later, away from prying ears, Lena explained just enough to leave him even more intrigued. "I had everything, and I lost everything. Not by accident, but by choice." She spoke in short phrases about a scandal involving betrayal, manipulation, and her deliberate withdrawal from high society. "Sometimes you have to disappear to survive," she finished. Ethan realized Claire wasn't just unsettled by her presence. She was afraid. There was a history here that could turn this engagement party upside down. Yet Lena wasn't in any rush. She played with time, like someone piecing together a puzzle only she understood. And Ethan, who had first chosen her as a mere accessory for provocation, now saw her as a strategic piece that could flip the game, if she chose to. The ballroom seemed to move in rhythm with Lena's steps. She glided between guests as though following an invisible choreography, leaving behind whispers and curious glances. Claire, still near the balcony, watched every move, not with the confidence of a hostess, but with the sharp eyes of someone who knows control is slipping away. Mr. Whitford, still struck by their reunion, lingered nearby, quietly observing as though waiting for something. When Lena stopped at the center of the room, the orchestra seemed to hush on instinct. She lifted her glass with a simple gesture, yet one heavy with authority. "This is a night to celebrate alliances, but some alliances come at too high a cost," she said, her voice clear enough to carry across the room. Eyes turned first to her, then to Claire and Victor. A bead of sweat slid down Victor's temple, imperceptible to most, but not to Lena. She went on. "Some here know me as Lena. Others may remember me as Helena Moreau. The name dropped like a stone into the calm waters of social etiquette. Claire stiffened. And I know many believed the stories told when I disappeared. Tonight, I've chosen to return to tell my own. From her purse, she pulled out a thick envelope and handed it directly to Mr. Whitford. Documents, forged signatures, illicit transfers, proof of the contract that pushed my family out of the board and put the company in the wrong hands. The room froze. Victor tried to intervene. This is outrageous. But Lena cut him off, her voice firm. It's the truth. And unlike you, I don't need whispers. I have proof. Guests began murmuring, some already pulling out their phones to record. Claire, pale, seemed caught between rage and fear. Ethan, standing just a few feet away, felt each piece of the puzzle snap into place, and understood that Lena had never been a pawn in his game. She'd been the player controlling the board all along. Without waiting for a response, Lena turned to Ethan, a brief smile on her lips. You wanted someone unforgettable for tonight. I hope you know what that means. He answered, still reeling. Who said I want to forget? Then, under the stunned stares of the city's elite, Lena handed her glass to a waiter and walked toward the exit, leaving behind not just a broken engagement, but truths no one could ignore. Helena crossed the marble corridor beneath the curious flashes of a few guests who followed her to the door. The cold night air hit her face, but she didn't slow her pace. Ethan, however, didn't let her leave alone. He caught up to her before she reached the car, his hand gently closing around her arm. You could have done this without me. Why did you let me be part of it? He asked, his gaze locked on hers. Helena studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether it was worth giving him the answer. Because I needed someone who wouldn't break in the middle of the storm. And, Ethan, you already know storms well. A faint smile touched his lips, but his eyes revealed something deeper. So you're not just going to disappear now, are you? She hesitated, and for the first time that night, her gaze softened. I said I know how to start over alone, but I never said I wanted to. The driver opened the door, and Helena stepped into the car without taking her eyes off him. Ethan took a step back, but before the door could close, she reached out, gripping his hand firmly. It wasn't a sudden romantic gesture. It was recognition, as if admitting he belonged in the next chapter. Ethan got in on the other side, and the car glided through the city's glowing streets. Inside, there were no set plans, no empty promises, just a quiet understanding that spoke louder than words. Helena turned her gaze to the window, and Ethan, still unsure where this would lead, knew only one thing. He wasn't ready to let her go. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about winning, but about staying. If this story kept you hooked until the end, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next twist.